כל השיר על פני הסוד, כל השיר על פני הסוד. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Can you hear?
Yeah, we hear you.
Baruch Hashem. All right, today, guys, today's boat day, which is good. It's quiet.
Normal.
Noise. There's no corona. It's in the stub. It's good. Not good.
Good morning.
Morning, good morning. All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Shabbos DAF Kuf Aleph. We began yesterday the sugya of how can one carry from a boat into the sea or from the sea into the boat. The example of from the boat into the sea will be a person pouring wastewater overboard. And if a person is traveling on sweet waters, the example we gave is in the Holy Land, if you're traveling on the Kinneret and at Shabbos and you have to drink water, how would you drink water into the boat? What is the issue? So first of all, a body of water has a status of a carmelus. And we spoke out yesterday, a gewaldige concept. How is it a carmelus? So first of all, midoiraisa, a body of water has the status of a reshus hayachid. Why does it have a status of a reshus hayachid? The way something becomes a reshus hayachid biblically is an area that's enclosed by mechitzas that have 10 tfachim of height, and the area itself is at least 4 by 4 tfachim. The ground of the seawater is 4 by 4. Being that it's common that when you're going down into the seabed, there is going to be a decline. There's going to be a steep decline that within 4 amas, you're going to go down 10 tfachim. That's called a sea wall. And you're going to have that from all of the sides of the body of water. Biblically, a body of water is a reshus hayachid. Eloma, when the Chachamim added the domain of a carmelus, they say water has a din of a carmelus. The reason that we mentioned yesterday, we'll learn a new reason today in the Gemara that Rishonim connect to the din of a sea, is that since it's difficult to make use of the area of a sea because it's a body of water. Over there and doing your things. So because of that, because it's called loy nicha tashmisha, it's no longer a reshus hayachid. It's certainly not a reshus harabim. The reshus harabim has to have 16 amas wide. It has to have, according to some Rishonim, the amount of kiyotze mitzrayim using it. It also has to have, according to some Rishonim, there has to be one straight shvil that goes from shar to l'shar. We'll speak about this at other times. It's zicher not a reshus harabim has a din of a carmelus. And now you have yourself a problem. Because to carry from a carmelus into a reshus hayachid or from a reshus hayachid into a carmelus is asur midrabanan. So we had in the Gemara 2 approaches. The shita of Rav Huna is that what part of the sea, of the body of water, is a carmelus? Only the bed, only the floor. And being that the carmelus functions like a reshus harabim in the context of a carmelus is only up to 10 tfachim, everything l'mayla masara tfachim from the floor of a carmelus has a din of a makam p'tur. So the top of the water is already called a makam p'tur. To carry from a makam p'tur into a reshus hayachid and vice versa is permissible. So b'chlal he doesn't consider for there to be any problem getting water from the Kinneret into the boat. However, being that people do know that a body of water is a carmelus, for us to make a heker, to remember that you can't carry from a carmelus into a reshus hayachid or the other way around. So you have a ziz, you have a little beam that's protruding over the side of the walls of the boat. That is a reminder, and that is enough to allow you to take water into the ship. This is Shitas Rav Huna. However, Rab Chizda and Rabbi Bar Rav Huna, they both hold that the status of the carmelus isn't only on the floor, the ocean bed, or in the lake bed. No, that the status of a carmelus goes all the way to the top of the water. A carmelus doesn't go above 10 tfachim. They consider the water part of the floor. It's one thick floor going all the way up to the top. So now you have yourself a greater problem. So that when you're taking water out of the kinneret or out of any body of water, and you're bringing it up over the wall of the boat into the boat, you are carrying from a karmelis into a reshus hayachid. So the solution is the solution known as a mechitza teluya. A mechitza teluya means that you have a box that is opened from the top and from the bottom. According to many Rishonim, including Rashi, the walls of the box need not even be 10 tfachim. There's a little wall. Again, there's 4 tfachim and 4 tfachim in between the north-south, the east-west walls. And we apply the concept of good achis. Good achis means is that the walls are we make believe, we imagine the walls going down. The walls go down all the way to the floor of the sea, all the way to the floor of the canal, all the way down. So whatever is within these walls is now within a reshus hayachid. So you are carrying the water from a reshus hayachid into the reshus hayachid, and only like that is it permitted. These are the 2 shittas that we learned. We're going to have many more details on Daf Kuf Aleph regarding the status of a ship. All right, don't forget also that when we learned one of the 7 dinim, minayin shenemar, if you remember, is that a ship normally cannot become tamei. That's going to take place in today's daf at the end of the daf. But we also learned the Mishnah's reason, Hananiah's reason. We learned an nafkamina between the reasons is that according to Hananiah, if a ship is so little, right, that you can carry it even when it's full, a ship could be makabel tumah. That detail will be important for today's daf. We're going to learn more details of when we do say good achis, that walls go down, and when we do not say good achis, moedidika concepts, okay, when we are more familiar, from moed, from dinei sukkah, good asik, that a wall goes up, that is something that we always apply halacha lamaisa. So when you build your sukkah, and you have to have the minimum 2 walls and a bit of a wall, as long as the walls are touching the ground, even if the wall doesn't go all the way up to the schach, I don't care. It's ke'ilu, it goes all the way up. That for sure we say. That's good asik going up. Good achis going down is already, as we'll see in Kuf Aleph, sometimes we say it and sometimes we do not. We're going to learn more details regarding eruvei chatzeros as we apply them to boats. So if I have my boat and you have your boat and they're one near to the other, so just like when my backyard is adjacent to your backyard, we, through the eruvei chatzeros, even on a rabbanan level, will be allowed to carry from one reshus to another. The same is said regarding ships, with the condition that the ships have to be tied together. Because this whole concept of carrying from one reshus hayachid to another reshus hayachid with an eruvei chatzeros is only allowed if there's no gap in between these 2 reshus hayachid. They have to be, in English, back to back. They have to be side by side. They have to be adjacent. Now, how do you view ships that they are in the water? Now, even if they're physically adjacent at this moment, the water can move one away from the other. So therefore, the ships have to be bound one to the other. If they're tied one to the other, then they're considered adjacent. And with an eruvei chatzeros, you couldn't carry one from the other. If they are not bound, even if physically they're right now neighboring each other, but since with one movement of the water that can change, you may never carry from one to the other, even if you have an eruvei chatzeros. How do you have to bind these ships? So we'll learn today's daf. Any type of rope that is strong enough to keep them together will make us consider these ships as bound one to the other. And a contrast to the din of tying ships together will be other halachas of hilchas tumah v'tara regarding other types of ropes. That for those halachas, the rope has to be dafka made out of metal, and those halachas have to do with a very unusual exception that we have in the laws of tumah v'tara. Normally in dinei tumah v'tara, when there's a source of tumah and it has halachic contact with something else, even when it does convey tumah, normally tumah goes down a notch. So if you're beginning with avi avois tumah, if it has contact, that which acquires tumah from avi avois only becomes an av. If the av passes on the tumah further, that which receives, that which acquires, only becomes a rishon. If the rishon is able to pass it on further, it only becomes a sheni. In other words, tumah normally goes down a notch, and there are exceptions. So the exception that we normally speak about is called tumas midras. We speak so much about tumas midras. Today we're going to learn an exception that is much less known because it's not spoken about as much as, and that is a rule that if you have a metal utensil, whether it is a cherev or any other metal utensil, if the metal utensil is acquiring tumah either from a corpse or from a person who became tamei from a corpse, either from the avi avois or from an av, the metal utensil is tamei on the same level as the source. Which means that if a sword is something that was used, right, in warfare or in self-defense or a milchemes mitzvah, and it killed someone, that sword, if I touch that sword, I become an av. I don't say, well, the sword touched the corpse, so the sword is an av. And now I'm a rishon, I become an av. More than that, if a sword touched a person who's an av, or any other metal utensil, that metal utensil itself becomes an av. So anything that touches it only goes down to a rishon. And a lot more details about this anomaly. It's called cherev oy b'meis. Right, the pasuk says in Chukas v'chayla sheyiga al panei asoda b'chalal cherev oy b'meis. We juxtapose the cherev to the meis, and more details as we unpackage today's daf. And let us start where we left off. We left off, my friends, the last line on daf kuf amid beis. Again, we spoke to machlokes amoraim. What status does the top of the water have? Right, so Rav Chizda and Rav Huna hold that even the surface of waters has a status of a carmelis. So it says the Gemara, so then one more detail. So now the question was, since oibazoi, if you have wastewater in a boat and you want to pour it overboard, the boat, shosayachit, speaking about a boat that has mechitzos of 10 tvachim and it's 4x4 or greater. The water, the surface is a carmelis. How can you take from the shusayachit to a carmelis? So the Gemara was machadesh, since this is only an act of hoitzah midrabanan. Guys, don't forget that midoiraisa, right? Since the body of water is not at a shusarabim, it's like at a shusayachit. Shusayachit to a shusayachit on a biblical level, you can carry no problem. So therefore, if you pour it on the walls of the ship, on the outer walls, so you did not pour it directly into the carmelis. We already learned a few daf ago that walls that create a reshus have the status of that reshus. So the walls of the ship, right, they themselves are a reshus hayachid. You are pouring it on a reshus hayachid, even though by the law of gravity, it will for sure trickle down into the water, you're pouring it indirectly in the water. Now, by the way, when it comes to hilchas nizakin, right, so there is grama, there is garmi. This is, it's not direct, but it's quite direct. I'm pouring it on the side, it's going to directly flow down. And Lama, the Gemara concluded that koichoi bekarmelis legazu. It's not direct, it's indirect enough for as far as hilchas Shabbos is concerned, for us not to be concerned with it. And that's where we continue. Umina temra. And from where do we know that koichoi bekarmelis is not a problem? The Tanya. And now we're quoting a Bryce. Sfina ship. Says the Braisa, ein metaltalin lemitoichalayam v'leiminayam letoicha, turning to the Avkuf Aleph Amid Aleph, right? That's the din that we learned in the Mishnah. Rishus hayachid to karmelis, karmelis to rishus hayachid. Now we're going to go into various other details that we didn't learn until now. Says the Tanach Rabbi Yehuda, if amuka asara, if the walls of the ship are indeed 10 ames, 10 tfachim tall. However, amuka means that when you are looking in the inside, in the interior, the wall measures 10 ames, 10 tfachim, I'm sorry, but when you are standing outside the ship, being that some of the ship sinks into the water, and the part of the walls that are visible, that means the parts of the walls that are above the water until the tip does not amount to 10 tfachim ve'ein gevaya asara, and we will see why that detail is gavaldik important according to Rabbi Yehuda. So in that case, says Rabbi Yehuda, metaltalin metoichaliyam, you are now allowed to carry from inside into the sea. Inside into the sea. Chayes, look inside Rashi, the third line from the top of the Amid. Not directly, never directly, but derech doif noiseha. You can carry water, wastewater into the sea by pouring it on the walls, like we just learned above. Kegoin, shoifchen, like wastewaters. Kidem afarish va'azul. That's the whole source that we are bringing. The koichoi bekarmelis legazru, says Rashi. Abel, let's go back into the Braisa. But we are not allowed to carry from the sea into it. Look inside the Rashi, right? 4 lines from the top of the Amid. The ain tashmish min hayam letoicha derech nafneiseha. You can't bring something up by pouring it on the walls, and gravity is going to work the opposite. It doesn't work that way. Okay. It's going to go back into the sea. So you have a problem taking things back up. What's shot? You have a problem taking things back up. So says Rashi, what is Rabbi Yehuda talking about? That the walls from the inside are 10 tefachim. But when you're looking outside, the part of the wall that is visible to the eye is less than 10 tefachim. Says Rashi, lo hachi nakni amuka yud. I guess the e eina amuka yud. Listen to this. If you have such a little ship that the walls from neither sides have the height of 10 tefachim, so what did we learn? If you have an area that's 4 by 4, but it's not 10 tefachim mechitzes, it has a din of a karmelis. So if the ship has a din of a karmelis, you are lechatchila allowed to carry, right? You're not carrying daladamas in a karmelis. You're simply carrying from the waters right near the ship, right near the boat, into the boat. That's not a problem. So if you have a super little ship, a machaya, you can carry without doing anything. However, another detail says Rashi that Rabbi Yehuda holds, listen to this chap, that if the walls of the ship, even the walls that are visible are 10 tefachim tall, and my friends, I know we have in the shul a few chevra that have boats, I think that will be the case, right? In Eli's boat, probably 10 tefachim, even that which is visible, I'm sure it is. So says the Tanach Rabbi Yehuda, listen to this, if you were to take water without your moving mechitzes, the water is going to go from the karmelis. To bring it over the wall, you are bringing the water over 10 tefachim. Even if we're going to subscribe to the shita, which we are, that even the surface of the waters has a status of a karmelis, but the moment you go 10 tefachim above the surface of the waters, you entered makim ptur. So when you carry from the water over the walls of the boat into the boat, if the walls, even from the outside, have 10 tefachim, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have no problem. Because you're going from a karmelis into a makim ptur, even though you're not putting it down there. From the makim ptur, again, because it's 10 tefachim above the surface of the waters into the boat. So karmelis makim ptur reshus hayachid is lechatchila not a problem. Lechatchila not a problem. If you remember, we learned in the Mishnah that reshus hayachid to a makim ptur, and then you yourself will take it from that makim ptur into the reshus harabim. Lechatchila, you shouldn't do that. Lechatchila, you shouldn't do that. Here we don't care because it's a karmelis and a reshus hayachid. I'm reading inside the Rashi, right? The same line where you have the aleph of the Bach. And again, the yud daf can knock out. The igvaya yud mutal tatal manayam l'toicha. Why? The mekarmelis l'reshus hayachid derech makim ptur kometaltel. Why is it derech makim ptur? Because you have to lift it up as yadi l'mayla meyud. Even though Rashi says, like we mentioned, that from Reshuyos, the Oiraisa, Reshus hayachid to Reshus harabim through a makim ptur l'chatchila, we don't do that. So Rabbi Yehuda limits the whole problem. According to the Tanach Rabbi Yehuda, this is so relevant that if you have the walls of the ship, that they are visibly 10 tefachim above the water from the outside, you can also take waters from the water. You can take waters from the sea into the ship because you're going through the makim ptur. The whole problem, according to the Tanach Rabbi Yehuda, is that inside the ship is a reshus hayachid because the walls in the inside are 10 tefachim tall. But if the walls from the outside are lower than 10 tefachim, so when you lift up the waters, you're not going 10 tefachim above the surface of the water because you don't need to, because the walls are not 10 tefachim tall. That is where you have a problem. And indeed, without doing this gimmick of mechitzas teluyas that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't mention, stamazo, you can't bring waters in, but you can pour waters out. End of brayso. So now says the Gemara, Ma'ishlam min hayam lo toicha deloi. And the answer is because to come and taltal and mekarmelis reshus hayachid. Again, obviously, this brayso holds that even the surface of the waters have a status of a karmelis. So why does the Rabbi Yehuda allow you to pour liyam, mitoicha liyam? Nami, it should have been prohibited because to come and taltal and reshus hayachid lekarmelis. That's what we read at Rashi. Elalav that enachanami that you can't directly pour the shoifchin waters out. It means achuda. Achuda means the rim, it doesn't mean the rim. Achuda means the walls, the outside walls. So you pour it on the rim and it flows on the outside walls, and that is allowed. Indirectly, you are transferring from a reshus hayachid into a karmelis. So indeed, shmamina, that koicha be karmelis, legazru shmamina.
Quick question.
Yes.
If the wall of the boat from the outside is more than 10 tefachim, Then what is that? How does that hurt us according to Rabbi
How does that
Yehuda?
help us? How does that help us? Even though you're not putting it down, because it's one movement, you're taking the bucket of water and you bring it into the boat. Since the wall from the outside is 10 tefachim or higher, which forces your hand to go above the wall to bring it inside, so we know for sure that the waters will go through the makim tur. So you're not going directly mikanmelis l'reshus hayachid directly. You're going kanmelis makim tur reshus hayachid. And being that the whole haitzah from kanmelis reshus hayachid is only a rabbinic problem, Rabbi Yehuda holds that if it's only going through the makim tur, already it's okay.
So the problem is when your wall is lower than 10 tefachim on the outside, that's where he has the
That's
issue.
right. And let's go further. If the wall, you're going in a canoe, if the wall is lower from neither side, it's 10 tefachim tall. It's such a little wall that no matter from where you wedge, it's never 10 tefachim tall. So Rashi says, then b'chlal there's no problem. B'chlal there's no problem. Why is there no problem? Because then the boat has a din of a karmelis, so you're taking mikarmelis lekarmelis. Now, don't forget, guys, we're not allowed to carry dalad amis in a karmelis. So don't take the bucket from 4 amas away. But if you're going to lower the bucket from the sides of your boat and you bring it inside, you're good. Okay, amazing. Mike,
So there's no issue of reshus to reshus with a karmelis?
no issue from the very good. That's what we're learning right now. There is no issue. Okay. Says the Gemara, Amar Afuna, more about boats. Honey, Bitsiasa the Meshan. Bitsiasa is a little ship, a little boat. You'll see it sounds similar to a canoe. A metaltalin bohen, ella ba'arbo yadahe, ella ba'arbo. Right? Without a hay, it's 4 tfachim. Remember, shaloi shloisha here also, that you can only carry within 4 amas. Watch that, 4 amas, you have a boat that's 4 by 4. But on top of the boat, you have walls and 4 by 4. As you go to the bottom of the boat, it becomes narrow, it becomes pointy, a canoe. I'm sure, right? I think Ellie's online here. All boats must come on the bottom become like sharp. But the key is that you need to have 10 tfachim height of a wall. You need to have a wall that has within it 4 by 4. If you don't have 4 by 4 tfachim within the walls, halachically, those walls don't have a din of a wall. The new din that we're learning today. So think about it for a second. You have a canoe or a rowboat, a little boat. On the top of the rowboat, you have 4 by 4 tfachim. So we consider the walls on the side mechitzas. But as you go to the bottom of the boat, it becomes narrower. There isn't 4 by 4. Halachically, when you don't have 4 by 4, those walls are not considered mechitzas. So there's no mechitzas in the bottom of the boat. So let me ask you something. If you have an area of 4 by 4 and there's no mechitzas, what is that called? It's called a karmelis. The whole boat becomes a karmelis. Now, what's the din of a karmelis? That within the karmelis, you're bound to carry less than 4 amas. You cannot carry 4 amas or more within that boat. Another detail about the bittul hamechitzis if there isn't 4 by 4. Says Rav Huna v'loya maran. That's only said ela she'ein b'pachos mishloisha arba'a. That if I'll speak in the opposite to be clearer, at least the way I can explain it. If you go within 3 tfachim to the bottom of the boat, and only when you are within 3 tfachim to the bottom of the boat, do you no longer have 4 by 4? So therefore you can argue the mechitzas there are ke'ilu, they don't exist. No, then I apply the law of lavud. The apply of lavud will be is I make believe as if the floor of the boat goes up. If it's only going up less than 3 tfachim, and if the moment you go up less than 3 tfachim, you have 4 by 4 between the walls, then you got yourself a bona fide reshus hayachid, you're good. But when does Rav Huna say that in these little bitziyasas of the city of Meshan, the boat has a status of a karmelis because it doesn't have mechitzas? Why doesn't it have mechitzas? On the top, there's 4 by 4 because as you go to the bottom of the boat, it becomes narrower. That is because it became narrower 3 tfachim or higher. It doesn't go within the lavud area. So since the bottom of the boat, where you can no longer say lavud, no longer has mechitzas, it's ki'ilu mevatel the mechitzas. There's no mechitzas. And if you have no mechitzas, so listen, the top of the boat is 4x4. See, if the boat in the bottom doesn't have 4x4, it's called a makom ptur. No, the boat on the top has 4x4. 4x4 without mechitzas is not a reshus hayachid. It's not a reshus rabim. So it's like harmless. But if when you go already to the lowest part of the boats, when you are already 3 tfachim, you are already within 3 tfachim from the ground, you still have 4x4. It's only when you go from 2.5 tefach to 1.5 tefach, that's where you lose the 4x4. That I don't care. Leis lamba, because of lavud, we look as if the floor raises up. Moedidika concept. And furthermore, mal'inu kanei v'urbanei. And if you're going to fill the bottom of the boat with types of reeds or willow branches, in other words, you make the floor taller. What are you accomplishing? You're bringing the floor higher and higher. That now, already within the 3 lowest tfachim, there is 4x4. So now you have a bona fide reshus hayachid again, leis lamba. Okay? Now, what did we learn yesterday? What did we speak out this introduction? We introduced yesterday the concept called mechitzas teluyas. Mechitzas teluyas means that if you have walls in one area, even if they don't go all the way down, we make believe as if it goes all the way down to the floor. That issue will contradict Rav Huna's statement. If you use the concept of a mechitza teluya, if you use the concept of gud achis, you have walls on the top of the canoe. Why do you have halachic walls? Because on the top of the canoe, you do have 4x4 tfachim. It's only in the bottom, in a big bottom, 3 tfachim or more from the bottom, do you lose the 4x4. Why don't you say gud achis? If you do say gud achis, then we will argue with the din of Rav Huna, and that will be the conversation. So now we're going to learn when we say and when we don't say gud achis.
Rabbi,
yes.
Yeah, maybe this has nothing to do with it, but didn't we learn a little earlier about an archway where there was one of the opinions that holds that you like cut it out like a square?
Yes, okay.
Would that ever apply to something like this, like a boat which is pointed, that you would also say like...
why it's not shaykh to do choykik and lahashlam, because choykik means that there is a wall, you have to carve out the passageway. Here, there's no boat. Think about it, right? You have a canoe. I don't know the dimensions. Like I might have Eli with us. You have maybe all canoes are that way today. When you sit in a canoe, the top can be 4x4 tfachim is very little. I think canoes are bigger. But at a certain point in the bottom, you don't even have 4x4 tfachim. If that point is 3 tfachim or higher, that means the lowest 3 tfachim or more than the lowest 3 tfachim, there isn't 4x4. There isn't 4x4. Halachically, the sides are not called walls. So there's no walls. The moment, so it's called mechitzas teluyos. You don't have walls going all the way down. There's no mechitzas. If there's no mechitzas, you have a karmelis. No, this is what to make it a reshus hayachid, you need mechitzas. It's not enough that it's not a reshus harabim. It's not a reshus harabim, but it's a karmelis. Okay. So masked Lord of Nachman. Well, hold on. You have in the top part of the canoe, you do have a mechitza because the top part of the canoe does have 4x4 tfachim. So why don't we say the rule of gud achis mechitzta, that we extend the walls down? Mi loitanya. This is not hilchas sukkah. Now we're going to learn hilchas Shabbos. That not kana b'reshus harabim. If you have a very narrow reed, you have a pole. Pole is skinny, and you stick it into the ground, and this pole goes up 10 tfachim or more, but there's no width of 4x4. But on top of this pole, you have a broshet teraskol, you have a basket. Now the basket is 4x4 tfachim, but you know what, my friends? The depth of the basket is not 10 tfachim. It's not 10 tfachim, but there's 4x4. This is mamish like this boat. What status does the teraskol have? So we learned v'zorak v'nach al gabav. If you are standing in the reshus harabim and you throw something, basket, you're chayav achatos. Why are you chayav achatos, my friends? It must be because the inside of the basket has a din of a reshus hayachid. Why does it have a din of a reshus hayachid? You don't have mechitzas gavoya is 10. So Alma, we see that we do say gud achis mechitzta. Yeah, the basket has 4x4. I don't care how little it is. I don't care how shallow it is. You extend halachically the walls all the way down to the ground. So hachinami in the boat, lema gud achis mechitzta. And that should render all boats, as long as there is any area where there's 4x4 into a reshus hayachid. with the milos and chesroinus. The milo of a Rosh Hashanah is you can carry inside the boat, no problem. The chisaron is if you're going to consider the surface of the waters like caramelis, then you'll have a challenge bringing waters inside. I don't care. But it has an Rosh Hashanah. So that's his challenge on Afuna. Who is making that challenge? Rav Nachman. So says Rabbi Yosef against Rav Nachman, I don't understand you. You're asking Rafuna by quoting a Braisa, did we not learn Maskava Rabbi Yosef, or it came to us in the name of Rabbi Chia that there is a Braisa on the din that you learned, that it's only a Das Yachid. Not everyone subscribes to you being Chai V'chatos, that the Chachamim exempt the person who throws an item into that basket. You know why? Because they do not consider the basket a private domain, because they don't apply good office. Faket. And we, das Rabbim, halach yachad Rabbim. You're quoting me Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Yashir Koyach, the Chachamim there disagreed. So we're challenging, what's Rav Nachman's challenge? And really now we're backing up Rafuna. So Amalei Abaye, no. Va'at loy tizberem. Everyone subscribes to good office. Even the Chachamim, and you have to agree to that because we learned another din, which is similar. So we learned now about a pole. Guys, a pole is very narrow, very narrow. Now we're going to learn about an amud. Amud means a post. And now we're speaking about a post that's not a agraba post of 4x4, but it's close to it. Amud Rishus Rabim, the post itself is taka wide 4x4. But you know where it doesn't have the 4x4 on the top. You know, not a 2x4, you know, a 4x4, 8x8, a grubber pole. But when it comes down, it becomes a little bit narrower. It's not 4x4 at the base. Here again, the yesh bakotzer shaloi shloisha. In other words, if it would be 4x4, almost all the way down to the bottom, it would already be 4x4 within 3 tfachim from the bottom. Then because of the din of lavud, you would make believe as if the earth comes up to it. Then it's avada Rosh Hashanah. But if it's 4x4 on the top, but be 3 tfachim or higher, it's already less than 4x4, says the Braisa, right? The Zajac v'nach al gabav, everyone holds that you're chayiv. Not only Rabbi Yossi but Rabbi Yehuda, the Chachamim. So here, we see that everyone subscribes to Alma Mrinan Gud Achas Mechitzta. So coming back to the boat, Hachinami Gud Achas Mechitzta. So Rav Nachman is right in challenging Rafuna. Now, let me ask you a question. What difference is there between the Kaneh, right? Between the post and between the Amud? What's the difference? And the Gemara is going to explain the difference. And all of that is actually going to challenge the din of Rafuna. Says the Gemara, the difference between these two dinim will be that over there, in the case where you have a kaneh, the kaneh is very skinny, very skinny. The basket on the top is 4x4. When you apply good achis, so it means you have to make, let's say, imaginary walls that go, when they hit the bottom of the floor, there is a lot of space in between this imaginary wall and the center kaneh. It's a space that when animals walk, they're walking through this wall. So now we're learning, do you know when you could say good achis? When you don't have things that are physically walking in that area. The moment you have animals, the example we're giving is a gedi, that's walking about around this kaneh, the fact that they walk there, they break good achis. They break this imaginary wall. What about the amud? Oh, the amud is so thick, even though on the bottom it's not 4x4, but it's almost 4x4. So for a gedi to walk in that imaginary area, it's gonna have to rub against the post. So gedim don't walk there. If gedim don't walk there, they're not mavatal this imaginary wall. Over here by the post, right? We mentioned yesterday, I hope the connection is better today, going back to quickly, Hilchas Eiduvin, the Eiduvin that we make in cities, that to make it a Shusay Yachid, you have to have mechitzas. So in order to make mechitzas that the goyim and the non-yet Shomer Shabbos Yidden won't mind, it has to be mechitzas that allows traffic to flow, right? Because if you make a mechitza and traffic can flow through the mechitza, so Chazal say the words that Asi Rabim Umabatal mechitzas. that same concept of Asi Rabim Umavatal Mechitzas, it nullifies the Tzuras HaPesach in some circumstances, which is the challenge of making a city Zerov. Here we're learning mamish the same concept that when you cannot say Gud Achis, if there are physical animals that are wandering around there and they're going through the imaginary wall, that's Mavatal the wall. Isn't that great? And therefore, what are you trying to tell me? That Rav Huna is right. I'm sorry, that Rav Nachman is right in challenging Rav Huna. Why is that? Because Rav Nachman is saying everyone should subscribe to Gud Achis, and everyone indeed does when you don't have Gediyim. Now, you don't have Gediyim wandering around in the water. But fish are swimming.
What about the water itself, Rabbi?
Huh?
What about the water itself? Why do you have to come onto the fish?
No, interesting. Water, we're looking at a very good point. We're looking at the water as if we're looking at the air. It's garnished. Has to be living animals that are wandering in and out. So don't you have fish swimming back and forth? It's not considered breaking through the wall. And all of this, my friends, is building up that Akasha Anafuna. Rav Nachman is right. Gud Achis is not always said, but Gud Achis should be said when it comes to the waters. Now, what's the difference between a gedi and a fish? So the Ritva says, because something that's underneath the water is not visible, that's his approach. And since it's not visible, based on this concept that if something is not visible to us, it has a lesser of a status, that's another explanation, why a body of water is a anomalous. What was our kasha? Body of water, since it has a decline, in 4 amos it goes down 10 tfachim, so there's a wall, and the bottom is 4 by 4. That's a bona fide reshus hayachid. Why is it only a anomalous? So we spoke out because it's not easy to use the body of water, right? And there's another approach. The other approach is because the walls are not visible. When something is not visible, it loses its koyach. Interesting. That's taka what the Ritva says regarding the reason why water has a din of a anomalous, because the mechitzas are not visible. But coming back over here, and the Gemara continues, Uminat Timra, the boy Yeminei Rav Tavla from Rav, Mechitza Tuluya Maisha Tate Bechurba. Guys, we're going to learn this in Eruvin. So Rashi here in the bottom speaks out the case, 2 lines before the bottom of the Amid. You have a house that is adjacent to the Shusarabim, and it's an old house, so one wall collapsed. Now, we already spoke out yesterday or 2 days ago that on a Doiraisa level, any area that's surrounded with a U with 3 mechitzas has a din of a Reshus HaYachid on a Doiraisa level. But Midrabanan, any area that's adjacent to a Reshus HaRabim, mamash like a mavui, without a heker, you may not carry in there. So here's what you happen. You have a house adjacent to the Reshus HaRabim. The wall that is touching the Reshus HaRabim collapsed, but it only collapsed in the lower parts. The higher parts of the wall, there's some wall coming down from the roof. That's a great case of Gud Achis. If you say Gud Achis, then you have yourself a closed off area. If you don't say Gud Achis, right, then you have a Reshus HaYachid that's open to a Reshus HaRabim, which rabbinically you cannot carry in there. Let's look inside Rashi. Bechurba, shederech liyois b'mechitzoy shenaflu tachteim v'kayomes ma'ila v'tuluyos. Okay, so the din is, says the Gemara, so is it mater? So va'amar le'ein mechitza tuluya materes. We don't allow that, we don't say Gud Achis. Turning to DAF, Kuf Aleph Amid Beis. Why don't we say that? Because since people and Gediyim can walk, there's no wall there. They can walk from the Churba to the Reshus HaRabim, from the Reshus HaRabim into the Churba. So the actual movement of living beings going back and forth, it breaks the imaginary or this concept of good of the wall coming down. So everyone holds to that. Ella, when it comes to Mayim, Kalu Shekil Chacham b'Mayim. Water is different. And like again, we spoke out because whatever is under the water is not visible. I va'amayo ika b'kiyas dagim, elo shma mina, b'kiyas dagim, lo yishma b'kiyah. And therefore, We backed up Rav Nachman's challenge against Rav Huna. Bottom line is we have a machlokes. If you are on a rowboat on Shabbos or on a canoe, again, we're speaking about a boat that the lower part of the boat already 3 tfachim or above from the bottom. It's narrower than 4x4. According to Rav Huna, since there are no mechitzas in the bottom, there's no mechitzas. We don't say, according to Rav Huna, good achis. If you have an area 4x4 without mechitzas, you have a bona fide karmelis. And if this has a status of a karmelis, the leniency will be is you can bring waters from the yam into the boat. You can throw waters from the boat into the sea. The chumrah will be is that if you have an area 4 amas or more, you may not carry on that boat. According to Rav Nachman, even if the boat is very narrow at the bottom and the narrowness is already 3 tfachim or higher from the ground, I don't care, because we do say good achas mechitzta. And where do the mechitzos go down to? Not to the bottom of the boat. They go down to the bottom of the sea. The fact that fish are flying back and forth doesn't disturb the din of good achas. So you have your banosov, you have a real rishus hayachid with all of the milas that you can carry on the boat, and the chisarim, which is that you cannot carry from the boat into the yam or back and forth without, according to the 2 Amoraim, Rav Chizda, as we started out today's shiur, without having the mechitzas to waves. Okay. Then the Mishnah spoke about sfinos kshuros, ships that are tied together. So the Mishnah says if they're tied together, you can carry from one ship to the other. So Gemara Pshita, what's the chiddush? And she's the Gemara, Amar Rabba, bitzis is bitziyasa. If you don't have 2 ships adjacent, there's a ship and a little rowboat in between it, a little canoe in between it. Now again, you are only allowed to carry in the Rishus HaYachid, or even from one Rishus HaYachid to a neighboring Rishus HaYachid, aside of the Eruv Chatzeros issues, if they are one continuum, if one is side by side, back to back, front to front. But if it's one Rishus HaYachid and then there's some other Rishus and then there's another Rishus HaYachid, you may not carry. So what happens if you have 2 bigger boats and in between them right now you have a little ship, a little rowboat in between it? That's the chiddush of the Mishnah, which is that we consider them one expanse of Rishus HaYachid. B'meila, you are allowed to carry from the big one into the little one, from the little one into the big one. Amalei Rav Safra, Moshe, Shapir, Kamrat. He's calling it Rav Moshe. Here's the Rashi. Right, Moshe, Koloima says Rashi, Rabbeinu b'doiroi kim Moshe b'doiroi. We proud Lubavitchers are familiar with this expression. The Rebbe is called Moshe Rabbeinu. Chal and Tanya Perikman Beis, the Alter Rebbe writes that every Yid has within them a nitzus of the neshama of. But here, the greatest one is called Moshe. Says Moshe, are you saying good? Zach's good? No. I disagree with you. The Mishnah never said that there is another boat in between it. The words of the Mishnah is sfinos kshuros. It's mashma. They're 2 ships and they're tied one to the other, and you can carry one to the other. And again, pshita, of course, if they belong to one person. So Elaman Safra, we're not speaking about 2 big boats with a little boat in between it, and the chiddush that the little boat is considered boat, and therefore it's considered one expanse of a Rishus HaYachid. If you have 2 boats and they do not belong to the same person, my Rishus HaYachid and your Rishus HaYachid. So normally we have now Shlem HaMelech's right solution of an Eruvi Chatzeros. One might have thought that you can't make an Eruvi Chatzeros on a boat. Why not? Because the boat is not stationary. It's like a floating Rishus HaYachid. And again, it has to be connected. And if there's a Rishus HaYachid and another Rishus HaYachid with any other Rishus in between, then you can't make an Eruv Chatzeros wouldn't help. And it's so easy to move a ship. So that's the chiddush of the Mishnah, that if they are tied on Shabbos, then Eruv Chatzeros will help. Uchedetanya, Sfinos Kshuros Zubazu, that when ships are tied one to the other, however, nifsiku, if they got untied, right? So then if they got separated, then nesru, it becomes forbidden, because even though you made an Eruv Chatzeros, Ben Hashmashos, there was an Eruv Chatzeros, the physical separation negates, it breaks the Eruv, and here comes the Chiddush in the Braisa, that if Chazru v'Nikshuru, if on Shabbos it got rebound, how did it get rebound? Says the Braisa, Ben Shoyigin, Ben Mezidin. You forgot that you made that tie make knots on Shabbos, or you knew and you did it anyways. Bein Anusim, you were forced to do it. Bein Muti'in. Mutin means, says Rashi, misasek. You didn't even know there were two strings. You didn't know that they were coming from these two ships. You thought they were not connected to the ships. You didn't even know that you're tying ships together. No matter how it happened, chazru leheteiron harishain, which is a chiddush, because here, remember Tzvika asked, if you're machal Shabbos, like I said, that cooking is the exception. There, you're in trouble, even if you did it b'shoigeg. But here we're learning about someone who violated making tying two ships together. Nevertheless, it is effective. Since when Shabbos came in, they were tied together. And you made an Erev Chatzeres. You only lost the permissibility because during Shabbos, the ships were disconnected. If they reconnected themselves, even Be'isr, that's what it's mashma here, you may carry now again from one ship to the other. Continues the Braisa. Similarly, if you have mats that are hung in the Rosh Hashanah, what are we talking about? You have a Rosh Hashanah. And then you have today, because of Corona, they're hanging up in areas, the mechitzas, to make cubicles. So if cubicles were made into the Rosh Hashanah, rendering the area in each cubicle a Rosh Hashanah, and you have one adjacent to the other, so the din is ma'arvin and mataltalam to mizulazu. If you make an Eruv Chatzeres, if they don't belong to the same person, you can carry from one to the other. What happens if niglalu? What happens if these areas are rolled up? Rolled up means, Pashut, you rolled up the mechitzas. If you rolled up the mechitzas, we're speaking about a scenario that you built them in the Reshus Harabim. So when you rolled them up, it reverted back to a Reshus Harabim. So then you can't carry from one to the other. And if Chazru v'nifrishu, if the mats were hung again on Shabbos Kodesh, means you built mechitzas on Shabbos. Here again says the Braisa, bein sheigin, bein mezidin, bein anusim, bein mutin, Chazru leheteiron harishain. Why, says the Braisa, the rule, shekol mechitza, that is made on Shabbos, bein v'shoigeg, even b'mezid, shma mechitza. Is this true, correct? Is this rule correct? You're telling me that if a mechitza is made on Shabbos, even b'mezid, you are now going to be allowed to carry from one to the other. V'ha'amar Rav Nachman, on that Braisa, no, that lo yishanu ela lizroik, fakir, that when do we say that if a mechitza is made on Shabbos, it's shema mechitza l'chumra. L'chumra means that if right, you have a Rosh Hashanah, and someone built these little cubicles into the Rosh Hashanah, and I'm standing on one side of the wall. What happens if I put something inside the cubicle, even though I didn't go 4 amas? Well, if inside the cubicle is a Rosh Hashanah, I'm going to be chayiv chatas, right? Because Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. Only here, l'chumra, do we say that even though the partitions were hung on Shabbos, if you brought something inside those cubicles, it's Rosh Hashanah for you to be chayiv for carrying. Abel l'taltel, but if you want to use this l'kula for you to be allowed to carry within these cubicles, if you made these partitions on Shabbos, the Rabbanim, we're going to be machmer. You did it b'mezid, then you should asur. So says the Gemara, ki itmer Rav Nachman indeed, amazid itmer. You're right, amoida. Rav Nachman's statement was l'kula, you can't use it if you made it b'mezid. But if you made it b'shoigeg, then you are allowed to use it, and indeed, that will be the din of the Mishnah. When we're saying about these ships that were untied and retied, we have to now limit it, that when will those tying of the ships, so to say, re-allow you to carry from one to the other if they were tied only b'shoigeg. Amar Shmuel, and Shmuel says that how strong do these ships have to be tied together? Is there a material that needs to be used, and without that material, halachically, they're not bound? So Shmuel, no, I don't care. Afilu kishuris bechuta sarbol. The sarbol is your outer cloak, your shalaba. So sometimes people would take off strings from their kapata, which is cloth, which is material, which isn't the strongest fiber. If you have a chut coming from your sarbol, it's not the strongest of ropes. As long as it effectively binds the ships together, even though it's not made out of metal, it's not the greatest of ropes, it will connect these two ships. And as long as we're learning, when two ships are connected, we consider them as a Reshus HaYachid adjacent to the Reshus HaYachid, even though they're on the water. And if they made an Eruv Chatzeres, you are allowed to carry from one ship to the other. One thing is clear, for people who have ships, right? So here in Los Angeles, they'll dock them out on Marina Del Rey. Can you carry from the marina onto the ship? It's very clear. You need to make an Eruv Chatzeres. because the marina belongs to everyone. Pashut, the ship belongs to you. You have to make it over chatzeres. If you have two people that have two ships touching each other, I don't know if people do that. I think it's going to ruin the ships. But that's the word. If two ships are mamish side by side, they belong to different people, and they're docked, and you're spending Shabbos on them, you have to make an eruv to carry one to the other. And the eruv is effective even if the ropes that are tying the ships together are not made out of metal. Says the Gemara, I don't understand what Shmuel is saying. Shmuel says even if it's a shvacha rope, a thin string, as long as it can hold it. If you're using your chut hasarbel, your string from your cloak, if it's strong enough to hold them in place, then a pshita, of course it's effective. Then taka, why would it be effective? Why does he have to speak about what the rope is made out of? If there's a need, let Shmuel say, you got to make sure that, beruach matsuya, that in these waters, the string will keep them together. Why does he mention chut hasarbel? So the Gemara says, lo oilam di yachal la'amidah. Obviously, yeah. We're speaking about a rope that has enough koyach to keep these ships bound together. The reason why Shmuel found it important to say that for this halacha, you may use a chut hasarbel to connect the ships, because Shmuel made a statement in another area in halacha, not connected to there. And in that area, it's not only about strength of binding things together. There, the din will be regarding a rope. It has to be metal. We'll see that din in a moment. For Shmuel to make it clear that these halachas and those halachas do not travel on the same track, here we don't care about the material. He needed to say, if you know other halachas, and therefore you would have a potential of confusion, Shmuel had to say it to make sure that you disentangle this din from the other. What's the elsewhere? The Tanan, we're learning a Mishnah Nahalais. And again, quickly reviewing some of what we mentioned in our Hagdama. Generally, when it comes to Tuma, being conveyed from a source to a recipient, it goes down a notch. The big exception that is not as known as Midrash is, according to Rashi and other Rishonim, guys, there's a big machlikas Rishonim exactly how to apply this din. It's called B'chalal Cherev. When it says in Chukas that Oy Hanegeya B'chalal Cherev Oy B'meis, if someone touched someone who was felled, who was killed by a sword, you can say a cholol, Oy Hanegeya B'cholol. What's b'chalal cherev? Now, cholol means someone that was killed, and b'meis, someone who passed away. So the word cherev is juxtaposed to b'meis, and that's to teach you that cherev is like a mace. Cherev is like a mace, meaning, according to Rashi, any metal utensil that had contact with a mace has the same status of the mace. A mace is an avi avois that has halachic contact. It's called also a avi avois. Or another chumrah, that if any metal utensil had contact with a person who became tummy through a mace, the person is an av, the keli is an av. Okay, so now let me speak out the Mishnah Nahalais. You got a boat, Eli, and you want to anchor it. So you're by the shore, but you take your rope and you tie it on the post where on the keli that's mechubar lakarka, upon which you anchor your ship. Think about it, guys. What happens if that post around which you put your anchor, you tie your rope to keep the boat where you want to keep it, is under a roof, and under that same roof there's a mace. Under that same roof there's a mace. Now, contact doesn't mean physical contact, halachic contact. So let's now apply this rule. Now, one more hagdama. We learned above that normally ships are not susceptible to becoming tamei. The reason was either a pasuk in Mishlei, Aniya b'leiv yam, but then we had a Tanach Hananya that learned it from a smichus that we have in Parsha Shemini, and from that smichus we made up sanaf kemina that if you have a boat that is so small that you can even carry it when it's full, such a boat is susceptible to becoming tamei. That's the boat that we're talking about, Lashitas Hananya. So I got myself a little rowboat, and I'm anchoring it with a metal rope. It happens to be that I put it on a post that's under an oil, also over a mace. Let's go through the steps. Based on the din of halal cherev b'meis, halal that halal hareo kemeis, cherev hareo kemeis, what status would this rope have? If the mace is an aviyah voice, and this is under the same oil, if it's made out of metal, then what status does this rope have? Aviyah voice. Aviyah voice. If the rope is an aviyah voice, what status does the ship have? An av. And therefore, all the kalim in the ship become a rishon. If this rope is not made out of metal, it's made out of any other material. It became tamei through oil amace. The mace is an aviyah voice. The rope that's under the same oil becomes an av. Upa. The av can be metama the boat into a rishon, but ein rishon oisa sheni by kalim. No kalim the boat will become tamei. So Shmuel said on the Mishnah that we learned in the Mishnah, let's read it inside, that kishara bedavar hama amida, right? If you have this type of rope that you use to anchor the ship, and you put it in its place. Now, bedavar hamamida is referring to the material of this cable, the material of this rope. The Mishnah doesn't say the words metal, but it means metal. And it's dafka because of metal. So if the rope itself is something strong, and therefore because of the din of cherev, hareu kemes, the rope itself is an aviyah voice. So it brings the tumah to the kalim in the ship. Aviyah voice, the ship, my friends, is an av, the kalim become a rishon. However, but if this anchor, if this cable is not metal, now again, the Mishnah doesn't say the word metal, but it's not that strong. It doesn't bring it to tuma, not because the rope doesn't become tummy. Of course it becomes tummy, but it becomes tummy one notch down. The mace is an aviyah voice, the rope is an av, the ship is a rishon, and that's the end. That's the end of the line when it comes to kalim. Now, if there's food on the boat, the food taka will become a sheni, and a chanami, but the kalim won't become tummy. And on that, Shmuel needed to say, what's the meaning of bedavar hamamida? Davar hamamida in the Mishnah and Ahalois doesn't mean strong or weak. It means metal or non-metal. And why is that? Because le'inyan tuma, that is where we apply this limud, halal cherev, that cherev hareo kachalol. That's the words. Cherev hareo kachalol. Avalei in Shabbos, I don't care about metal. Even a chut asarbol will be enough of a rope or of a cable or of a string, as long as it keeps these two ships together. Even the yachal amida, afilu b'chut asarbol. If you made an eight of chatzeros, or if you own both ships, you don't even need an eight of chatzeros. But again, for me to carry from my reshus hayachid to my reshus hayachid, they have to be adjacent. And when things are on the water, they're not that adjacent. So that's the din, that if they are tied together, they're considered adjacent. And for that, I don't need to have any din of metal. And that's why Shmuel emphasized the concept of chut asarbel, God willing, to be continued.
Rabbi, why are we not worried that somebody's going to play around with the chut asarbel because it's so fragile on Shabbos?
In other words,
make it stronger.
Even though, very good, you word it differently. You know, the vart is that even if someone were to get involved, they would disconnect the cable as long as, without anyone shepping it, as is, it's going to stay, it's going to connect the boats. I don't even think, Eli here, do you guys use metal? I don't think you use metal. Metal will ruin the road. What do you guys use?
No, of course. For an anchor chain, you have a metal.
But a chut asarbel is very fragile.
The rope that you use today to tie your ship on
yeah, it's not metal. It's not metal.
It's not metal.
To the dock is nylon rope. The anchor rope is metal.
Very good. So I'm saying that's the whole part. So if you put your nylon rope and it has contact with an aviyah voice atuma, if it would be metal rope, imagine all of the kalim on your ship would become tummy. If it's nylon rope, it doesn't. I can't hear you say.
A chut asarbel is not nylon. A chut asarbel is a thin little rope that you're worried is going to rip at any minute.
Chut asarbel means that you improvise the rope. It's not about nylon. It's an improvised rope, as long as it works.
But it's very delicate.
It's thin.
So we're not worried that he's going to try to strengthen it on Shabbos?
No, obviously not.
No, but doesn't it mean, Rabbi, that it still has to be strong enough to normally hold the boat?
That's what Shmuel is saying. But strong enough means strong enough if you leave it the way it is. Beruach mitzuya.
So what's the chiddush of a chut asarbel? It's any chut.
That it's not metal.
It doesn't have to be metal. It doesn't have to be metal. Why would it have to be metal? Because for dinim tum and tada, metal makes the difference. Not for this. For this, it's not. Could it hold it? Can it not hold it? Chut asarbel means it's improvised.
Rabbi, can I ask you one question going back to the previous sugi with Rav
Yeah, I'm
Huna?
listening. I'm just putting on my shoes. Yes, talk. I hear you, Danny.
Yeah. So did we in the end actually have a like slug up Rav Huna with the whole thing of the
Yes.
the mechutz?
Yes, not we slug. Yes, Rav Nachman argues with Rav Huna.
The maskana, even though Rav Ashi said that it only applies to water, but the concept of it being in the boat 4x4 tefachim and then it be going down, does that actually work or not?
Yes. Listen, I don't know how halacha l'maisa. I know that we learned this. No, I mamish remember this last cycle, Danny. We don't say gudachis because gedim are breaking by. We don't say gudachis, and since we are saying that fish are not like gedim because the Ritva says because it's not nidal einayim, then we say gudachis.
Rabbi, is there a minimum or max requirement on the gudachis, the height?
Oh, so machlekes rishonim. So very good, Sik. I spoke it out yesterday. So I think Tosfos holds that the walls have to be at least 10 tefachim. We're going to learn this in Eruvin. This I remember so clear. Rashi holds even if the walls don't have 10 tefachim. And the proof is from the din of the basket. We just learned the din of the basket. The basket does. If the basket would have 10 tefachim, then the basket is a Rosh Hashanah. The reason why Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, who says we say gudachis even when Gedim boikim, so Rashi holds we say gudachis anytime.
Rabbi, last question regarding the wastewater from a boat. Today, if they have a bathroom on a boat, when you flush it, there's an opening and it goes straight down from the what do you call it, into the ocean. So if you're doing that on Shabbat,
tell Eli that he should build a contraption that it doesn't flow into the water, it flows to the side, to the wall, and it trickles down from the wall.
So it goes right down, rolls down the wall.
I take it back. If the hole is 4x4, then you have a mechitzah teluya. If the hole is 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, it can go directly on the water because of godachis. That's what we're saying.
No, but if it's not 4x4, I don't think it's
not 4x4. Then it has to hit the walls. Then for Eli to use the bathroom on Shabbos, you got to.
It has to roll down the walls.
Roll down the walls because koichev and kadmol is laminated. Guys, I showed davening is beginning.
That's good stuff.
Eli, you should fix your boat. Alo, make your boat a bathroom that's kosher Shabbos.
Put it on Shabbos mode.